You're not too sensitive. You've been trying to grow in the wrong weather. Somebody told you, probably years ago, that the fix was to toughen up. Thicker skin, less feeling, more armor. So you tried it. It made you smaller, not stronger. But a rare plant doesn't survive by turning into a weed. It survives because someone builds it a greenhouse. That's what this video is. 4 walls. And wall 3 is the one almost everyone builds backwards, which is usually why the other 3 collapse a year later. I'm not going to tell you your sensitivity is a gift. Jung wouldn't have either. He spent his life on a harder question, and it's yours now. What do you do when the world is too loud for who you actually are? Here's the strange part. The trait you've been apologizing for since childhood is one psychology only got around to naming in the 1990s. Elaine Aron called it sensory processing sensitivity. Roughly 1 in 5 people have a nervous system that takes in more, holds it longer, and processes it deeper. Not a disorder, not a weakness, a different intake system. And developmental researchers found something stranger still. Some children are like dandelions. Drop them anywhere, they grow. Others are like orchids. In a bad environment, they fail badly, worse than the dandelions. But in a good one, they don't just catch up. They outperform everyone. Same child, same nervous system. 2 completely opposite outcomes, depending entirely on the soil. Which means the question you've been asking your whole life is the wrong one. You've been asking what's wrong with you. Nobody ever thought to ask what's wrong with the room. Now think about who told you to toughen up. Was that person right, or were they just a dandelion who had never needed a greenhouse and assumed nobody else did either? You know how the day goes. You wake up already slightly behind, like your nervous system stayed up working while you slept. By noon, you've absorbed the tone in your manager's message, the mood of the person on the train, the argument happening 2 tables over that nobody else appears to have heard. None of it is your business. All of it is now in your body. You get home, and you can't explain what happened, because on paper, nothing happened. You went to work. You answered emails. You had a normal day. So you tell yourself you're being dramatic. You look at people who seem to move through the same day untouched, and you conclude the difference is discipline. That they're stronger and you're soft. Then comes the part nobody talks about, the withdrawing. You start canceling. Not because you dislike anyone, but because a 2-hour dinner will cost you the entire next morning and you've stopped being able to afford it. And here's what makes it worse. The withdrawing works. That's the trap. It genuinely brings relief, so you do it again and again, until relief is the only thing left on your calendar. You have been solving this problem by shrinking the room. And it has never once occurred to you that there might be a version of this where you don't have to. There was. Carl Jung built it out of stone. In 1923, after his mother died, Jung bought a strip of land at Bollingen on the upper lake of Zurich. He started building a tower there. Not a metaphor. An actual stone structure, which he added to in stages across more than 3 decades. No electricity, no telephone. He cut his own wood, drew his own water, cooked on an open fire. He carved images into the stone himself, including a cube covered in inscriptions that he worked on for weeks. He said that at Bollingen he was in his most real form. Now, the easy read is that Jung was a recluse who couldn't handle people. That read is wrong, and the dates prove it. 10 years before the tower, in 1913, Jung's professional world collapsed. His break with Freud cost him his position, his standing, most of his colleagues. What followed was the period he later called his confrontation with the unconscious, the years of visions and near unraveling that produced the material behind everything he wrote afterward. He came out of that knowing something about himself that most people never learn. He knew exactly what conditions his mind required in order to function, and he knew nobody was going to build them for him. So he built them, out of stone, on a lake, by hand. But he did not stay there. He came down from the tower. He saw patients, he lectured, he traveled, he published, he argued with people in print for another 30 years. That is the entire distinction, and almost everyone misses it. Jung didn't build a place to hide from his life. He built a place that made his life possible. He called the wider process individuation, becoming the specific person you actually are instead of the general person you were trained to imitate. and you cannot individuate in an environment that punishes every honest signal your nervous system sends you. So, 4 walls. Wall 1 is the filter. Not less input, better chosen input. Most sensitive people try to reduce volume across the board and end up with a beige life. The move isn't quieter. The move is deliberate. You are the one deciding what gets in, and you have to actually decide, because your nervous system will not filter for you. Wall 2 is temperature. Recovery time, built into the structure instead of borrowed after the fact. You already know your true cost for a social evening or a hard conversation. Stop pretending it's zero and stop paying it in the following morning. Schedule the recovery before the event, not after the crash. Wall 3 is the one people get backwards, and it's the one that brings the whole thing down. A greenhouse is made of glass. Not brick, not steel. Glass. Deliberately. Because the entire point of the structure is to let the light through while keeping the weather out. A greenhouse that blocks everything is a shed. Nothing grows in a shed. But when you're exhausted, glass feels insufficient. So you start building in brick. You cancel a little more. You let a friendship go quiet. You stop saying the true thing in the meeting. And it feels like protection, right up until the day you notice you're safe and nothing is growing. Isolation and regulation look identical from the inside. That's why this wall fails. The only reliable test I know is the direction of the feeling afterward. Regulation leaves you wanting to return to your life. Isolation leaves you dreading it. Same behavior, opposite readings. Check which one you're getting. Wall 4 is the light source. What is any of this protection actually for? Because a greenhouse with nothing growing in it is just an expensive empty room. Jung's tower is not remembered as a house. It's remembered because of what he made inside it. The protection was never the achievement. It was the precondition. I'll be honest about the part that took me longest to accept. I spent years treating my recovery time as a personal failing I was managing quietly, like a debt I was too embarrassed to mention. The change wasn't self-acceptance. That word gets thrown around and it did nothing for me. What actually changed was mechanical. I stopped negotiating with the cost and started designing around it. Certain mornings are not available. Certain conversations happen in person or not at all. Some rooms I now leave early, without an explanation, and I've stopped apologizing on the way out. None of this made me softer. It made me significantly harder to move. And here's the uncomfortable part. The part that isn't a nice ending. Building the greenhouse will cost you. People will read it as coldness. Some invitations stop arriving. Certain friendships were only ever holding together because you were absorbing all the friction, and once you stop, they come apart. You will lose things. That's real. I'm not going to dress it up. What you get back is that you finally stop spending your entire capacity on staying upright, and you can put it into something that's actually yours. So, here's what I'd sit with. Every plant that requires a greenhouse is a plant that produces something a hardier one can't. That's not a compliment. It's a description of a trade, and you've been paying one half of it your whole life, without ever collecting the other. The weather isn't going to change. Nobody is coming with the glass. Jung was 68 before the tower was anything close to finished. He kept adding to it until he was in his 80s. So the question isn't whether you can handle the world as it is. You've proved that. You've been handling it, badly resourced, for years. The question is, what you'd grow if you finally stopped standing out in the rain.